Admiral Timothy Robinson knew the war was over as soon as mankind's ancient flagship Endeavour dropped out of hyperspace at the besieged colony of New Eden, armed with weaponry that would reduce the Brunali invasion fleet to molten slag in mere hours. "Status report," barked Robinson, his grizzled face grim as red alert klaxons howled across the Endeavour's bridge. "Sir, New Eden's defenses are crumbling under the Brunali assault," the OPS officer reported, hands flying over her console. "Their garrison is outnumbered 10-1, civilian casualties mounting. They can't hold out much longer." Robinson slammed a fist on his armrest, the metal creaking under the impact. Damn the Brunali! Ruthless bastards had launched a surprise attack on the colony, hoping to punch through and open up human space for conquest. And now thousands of innocent lives hung in the balance. He had no choice. The Endeavour had to join the fight, even against such overwhelming odds. But this was no ordinary warship. An ancient vessel from humanity's past, recently discovered and retrofitted with incredibly advanced tech the Brunali had never seen. She packed one hell of a punch. "Helmsman, set course for New Eden, maximum burn," Robinson commanded. The crew hastened to obey as the mighty ship leapt forward, engines roaring. Stars blurred past the viewports as they raced to the rescue. 5 long years of bloody war, Robinson reflected grimly, ever since the Brunali's unprovoked assault on human territory. Billions dead on both sides, with no end in sight. Their motives remained unclear, but one thing was certain. Their unrelenting ferocity and aggression posed the gravest threat mankind had ever faced among the stars. Now this bold offensive threatened to bring humanity to its knees. The future of their entire species hung in the balance. Everything rode on this battle. Long-range scans filled the view screens as they approached the colony, a massive Brunali attack force of hundreds of ships, troop transports, dreadnoughts, planet killers. New Eden was surrounded, outmatched, and out of time. Robinson drew a deep breath, knowing the coming fight would likely decide the fate of the war itself. The survival of millions rested on their shoulders. But with the Endeavour's unparalleled power at his fingertips, they still had a chance to turn the tide. "Battle stations!" Admiral Robinson's voice rang out, cold as steel, as the Endeavour roared into weapons range. Her crew stood ready, faces etched with grim determination. It was time to show the Brunali what humans were made of. As the Endeavour hurtled into weapons range, Admiral Robinson wasted no time. "Target the Brunali command ships and support vessels," he barked to the gunnery crews. "Take out their coordination and cripple their supply lines." A chorus of "Aye, sir," rang out as the crew hastened to obey. The Endeavour's advanced weapons systems hummed to life, energy crackling along her hull as she prepared to unleash hell. Beams of searing light lanced out from the Endeavour, slicing through the void with deadly precision. The Brunali ship's shields flared and buckled under the onslaught, their hulls boiling away smoothly. Explosions blossomed among the enemy ranks as the human ship's weapons found their marks, sowing chaos and destruction. On the bridge of his flagship, Zephyr reeled in shock as the Endeavour's sudden appearance and devastating opening salvo threw his fleet into disarray. Consoles sparked, and alarms blared as the advanced human weapons proved their deadly effectiveness. "All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel," Zephyr roared to his crew, jabbing a clawed finger at the Endeavour's holographic icon. "I want it destroyed now." The Brunali ships wheeled about, bringing their own weapons to bear on the human interloper. Lances of energy and missile contrails streaked across the void, converging on the Endeavour in a storm of fire. But to Zephyr's dismay, the human ship's shields held firm, swatting aside the Brunali attacks like gnats. The Endeavour surged forward, her own weapons answering the enemy's futile barrage with devastating effect. Seizing the momentum, Admiral Robinson pressed the attack. "Engage at close quarters!" he ordered, eyes hard as flint. "Let's show them what we're made of!" The Endeavour and her battle group plunged into the heart of the enemy formation, weapons blazing. The human ships fought with reckless courage, their spirits soaring at the sight of their legendary flagship leading the charge. All around the Endeavour, Brunali ships crumpled and burned under the humans' relentless assault. The enemy returned fire with desperate ferocity, scorching the Endeavor's shields, but the ancient vessel held firm, her superior technology proving its worth. As the battle raged, the Endeavor's sensors pierced the chaos, detecting a crucial weakness in the enemy's formation, a cluster of troop transports carrying the bulk of the Brunali's ground invasion force. "Admiral, the transports!" the sensor officer called out, highlighting the ships on the tactical display. "If we take them out, we can cripple their planet-side offensive." Robinson's eyes narrowed as he saw the opportunity. "Helm, set course for those transports," he ordered, voice cold as the void. "We're going to cut the head off this snake." The Endeavor surged forward, her battle group falling into formation around her. They carved a path through the enemy lines, shields flaring as they weathered the Brunali's desperate fire. The human ships formed a protective cordon around the Endeavor as she closed in on the transports, their own weapons keeping the enemy at bay. The Brunali fought like cornered beasts, but they were no match for the Endeavor's advanced technology and the skill of her crew. In a daring maneuver, Robinson brought the Endeavor directly into the midst of the transports, her shields flaring as she rammed through the massive ships like a battering ram. Point-blank weapons fire erupted from the human vessel, tearing the transports apart in blooms of fire and debris. Zephyr howled in rage as he watched a significant portion of his ground forces vanish in the blink of an eye, the Endeavor's audacious attack throwing his carefully laid plans into disarray. "Regroup and focus all fire on that ship," he snarled to his fleet, claws gouging furrows in his command chair. "I want it dead regardless of the cost." As the battered Brunali ships regrouped and surged towards the Endeavor, Robinson knew the fight was not nearly finished. The Endeavor was powerful, but she was vastly outnumbered, and the Brunali's desperation made them even more dangerous. The Admiral's fists tight as he watched the enemy fleet converging on his position. He would have to use every trick in the book to hold them off long enough for reinforcements to arrive. "Steady as she goes," Robinson called out to his crew, voice unwavering. "We hold the line no matter what. New Eden is counting on us." The Endeavor and her battle group braced for the next wave, weapons charged and shields thrumming with power. The fate of the colony hung in the balance, and the Endeavor's crew knew that their actions in the coming hours would shape the course of the war itself. As the Brunali bore down on them, teeth bared and weapons blazing, the humans met them head-on, determined to stand firm against the tide. The battle for New Eden had only just begun. Admiral Robinson's eyes narrowed as he watched the Brunali forces regroup, their ships forming a massive wall of steel and energy shields bearing down on the Endeavor. He knew they had to act fast or be overwhelmed. "Weapons, I want everything we've got on those lead ships, now." The Endeavor's weapons officers sprang into action, fingers flying over control panels. The ancient warship's hull thrummed with power as its most devastating armaments came online. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out, carving through space. Plasma torpedoes streaked from launch tubes, leaving trails of blue fire. Particle cannons spat streams of exotic matter that the Brunali had no defense against. The enemy's front line disintegrated under the furious barrage. Shields flickered and died, armor plating boiled away, and hull breaches vomited atmosphere and crew into the void. On his crippled flagship, Zephyr stared in disbelief as a final energy beam punched through his vessel's weakened defenses. Alarms blared as the main reactor went critical. "Abandon ship!" he roared, but it was too late. The Brunali command ship erupted in a spectacular explosion, scattering debris across the battlefield. Robinson wasted no time pressing his advantage. "Battle group, initiate attack pattern Epsilon. Hit-and-run strikes on their flanks. Endeavor will engage their capital ships directly." Human vessels peeled away, harrying the disorganized Brunali formations with lightning raids. Meanwhile, the Endeavor's engines flared as it accelerated, dancing between enemy ships with impossible agility for a vessel its size. Its weapons sang a song of destruction, each salvo precisely targeted to cripple propulsion systems, weapons arrays, and command centers. Dreadnoughts and carriers, the pride of the Brunali fleet, were reduced to drifting hulks one after another. The Endeavour seemed untouchable, its advanced shielding absorbing concentrated fire from multiple hostiles without so much as flickering. It was as if the ancient vessel was toying with its opponents. Seeing his forces being systematically dismantled, the Brunali admiral, who had assumed command after Zephyr's demise, made a fateful decision. All ships, full attack on the human vessel. Swarm it. We'll crush it through sheer numbers. The remaining Brunali warships turned as one, engines straining as they charged toward the Endeavour in a suicidal wave. But Robinson had anticipated just such a daring plan. A cold smile played across his lips as he gave the order. Drop the singularity containment field. Deep in the Endeavour's core, safety systems disengaged. Exotic matter barriers fell away, revealing the impossible. A miniature black hole, tamed and harnessed as a power source. Target the enemy formation and release gravitational tethers. Space itself seemed to twist and warp around the Endeavour. The oncoming Brunali ships shuddered, their shields crumpling without effort under the intense gravitational forces. Hull plating tore away in strips, entire sections of ships stretching and distorting before being consumed by the voracious singularity. In a matter of seconds, dozens of enemy vessels simply ceased to exist, drawn inexorably into the swirling vortex of destruction at the Endeavour's heart. The Brunali admiral stared at his tactical displays in mute horror as ship after ship winked out of existence. His fleet, which had seemed unstoppable mere hours ago, now lay in ruins. All units, disengage and retreat immediately, he croaked, his voice hollow with defeat. Fall back to the rendezvous point. The pitiful remnants of the once mighty invasion force turned tail and fled, scattering in all directions as they sought to put as much distance between themselves and the Endeavour as possible. On the Endeavour's bridge, Robinson allowed himself a grim smile of satisfaction as he watched the enemy routed. New Eden was safe, and humanity had gained a powerful new weapon in its war against the Brunali. Signal Fleet Command, he ordered. The Endeavour stands ready to spearhead our counteroffensive. Robinson wasted no time capitalizing on their victory. All ships, pursue and engage the retreating Brunali vessels, he ordered. Don't let them regroup. The human battle group surged forward, engines flaring as they chased down the fleeing enemy. Smaller, nimbler craft darted ahead, peppering the Brunali stragglers with weapons fire. Explosions bloomed in the void as crippled ships were picked off one by one. On his ruined bridge, Zephyr could only watch in impotent rage as his once mighty fleet was systematically dismantled. Sparks showered from shattered consoles as another nearby cruiser disappeared in a ball of flame. "Status report," he barked. "Engines offline, weapon systems critical, hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, a subordinate reported, voice trembling. "We're dead in space, sir." Zephyr's claws dug into his command chair. He'd led the greatest invasion force in Brunali history, and now he was trapped, helpless as his soldiers were hunted down like vermin. With the space around New Eden cleared, Robinson turned his attention planet-side. The Endeavour's sensors pierced the atmosphere, mapping out Brunali fortifications and troop concentrations with pinpoint accuracy. "Target those defensive emplacements," Robinson ordered, indicating a cluster of icons on the tactical display. "Fire when ready." The Endeavour's weapons batteries opened up, raining death from orbit. Lances of energy sliced through the clouds, vaporizing Brunali strongpoints in blinding flashes visible from space. On the ground, panicked Brunali soldiers scrambled for cover as their defenses crumbled around them. Ammunition dumps exploded. Command centers were reduced to smoking craters, and supply lines were severed in a relentless barrage. Within hours, the occupying forces were in full retreat, abandoning their equipment as they fled into the wilderness. Cut off from orbital support and leadership, entire battalions threw down their arms and surrendered to the human colonists emerging from hiding. As the last pockets of resistance were mopped up, the incredible news began to spread. The Endeavour's victory sparked a surge of hope across human space. On 100 worlds, resistance cells redoubled their efforts against their alien oppressors. Robinson knew they had to press their advantage. "Signal Fleet Command," he ordered. "Tell them we're taking the fight to the enemy. It's time to liberate our lost colonies." The response was overwhelming. From systems light years apart, every available warship converged on New Eden. Freighters were hastily converted to troop transports. Mothballed vessels were pulled from boneyards and reactivated. Within days, the largest human armada ever assembled stood ready, with the Endeavor at its head. The hunters had become the hunted. World after world fell as the fleet struck without warning. The Endeavor would appear in orbit, annihilating the Brunali defenses before they could react. Then, waves of dropships would descend, human marines linking up with local insurgents to root out the occupiers. Colonies that had suffered for years under the Brunali's iron fist tasted freedom once more. The scenes of celebration were broadcast across human space, bolstering morale and perseverance. In their grand hall on the Brunali homeworld, the High Command stared at tactical displays in disbelief. Centuries of martial tradition and conquest were crumbling before their eyes. "How is this possible?" one general hissed. "They were on the verge of defeat." "It's that ship," another replied, mandibles clicking in agitation. "The one they call Endeavor. Nothing can stand against it." As world after world slipped from their grasp, the terrible realization set in. What was meant to be their moment of triumph had become a disaster. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. Admiral Robinson stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the vast expanse of human-controlled space. Each liberated colony pulsed with a soft blue light, a testament to their recent string of victories. Yet his gaze was drawn to the angry red cluster at the edge of the map, the Brunali home system. "It's time we end this war once and for all," Robinson said, his voice cutting through the low hum of the bridge. "We strike at the heart of the Brunali Empire." His senior staff exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces. Captain Chen, his tactical officer, stepped forward. "Sir, the distance alone is staggering, and their defenses—" Robinson nodded. "I know, but a decisive blow there could force them to sue for peace. We have the momentum. We need to use it." For weeks, the Endeavor's crew worked tirelessly. Robinson pored over intelligence reports, studying Brunali defensive patterns and supply lines. Engineers pushed the ancient ship systems to their limits, squeezing out every ounce of performance. As word spread of the audacious plan, ships from across human space converged on their position. Carriers laden with strike craft, lumbering supply ships, nimble frigates, all answered the call. Finally, after countless hours of preparation, Robinson stood before the assembled captains of the greatest human fleet ever mustered. "Today we embark on a journey that will decide the fate of our species," he said, his voice firm. "The road ahead is long and perilous, but with the Endeavor at our vanguard we will prevail." A chorus of cheers erupted from the gathered officers. As they dispersed to their ships, Robinson felt the weight of history on his shoulders. The journey began smoothly enough, but as they penetrated deeper into Brunali territory, resistance stiffened. At first, it was hit-and-run attacks, swift Brunali raiders materializing from hyperspace to harry the fleet's flanks before vanishing again. Robinson watched from the Endeavor's bridge as another such attack unfolded. A trio of Brunali destroyers dropped out of FTL, their energy weapons lashing out at the human fleet's picket line. "Bring us about," Robinson ordered. "Full power to forward shields." The ancient warship's engines flared as it surged forward, interposing itself between the attackers and the vulnerable support ships. Brunali weapons fire splashed harmlessly against the Endeavor's defenses. "Target locked," the weapons officer called out. "Firing solution ready." "Fire." The Endeavor's main guns spoke, lances of coherent energy slicing through space. The lead Brunali ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. Its companions barely had time to register shock before they, too, were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. But for every skirmish won, the fleet's progress slowed. Heavily fortified choke points blocked their path, requiring days of sustained bombardment to clear. Entire Brunali battle groups threw themselves at the human armada in waves of suicidal fury. Months passed and the toll mounted. Human ships limped along with makeshift repairs, their crews exhausted. But always the Endeavor led the way, its ancient weapons cleaving a path through the stars. At last, after what felt like an eternity of ceaseless combat, they reached the outskirts of the Brunali home system. Robinson's eyes widened as he took in the staggering array of defenses arrayed before them. Massive orbital fortresses hung in space, their gun batteries already tracking the approaching fleet. Vast minefields stretched between them, a deadly maze guarding the approaches. And beyond it all, the Brunali homeworld itself, their last bastion, now within reach. Robinson's expression resolute as he surveyed the obstacle before them. The real battle was only just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.